First of all, good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon to the interpreters. Thank you for being with us this afternoon to help on this event. The Agri-PDB Platform is one that brings together public development banks, and it's organizing one last webinar around agroecology this year. This is a dialogue that we've organized between producers, farmers, and a public development bank. The event is in French, and I'm saying this for the newcomers. And I would like to give the floor to Marion Michaud, who's going to introduce the event. She's from DG INTPA, which has hosted this dialogue ever since the beginning, especially with regard to the activities for fostering agroecology with PDBs. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Just a few words of introduction to stress that agroecology, as defined by FAO and the HLPE, is a very effective and credible response to build sustainable and resilient agri-food systems that make it possible to respond to some of the most serious global challenges, for example, climate change, degradation of soils, and loss of biodiversity. So agroecology is based on observation of agricultural practices globally, and it's fed by observations made by partners in the global south, but elsewhere. There are various actors involved, including donors and partners, and investments. However, continued to be quite marginal and quite low. According to a recent study of FAO, the annual amount of subsidies to agriculture throughout the world are about 600 plus billion, whereas the funding provided to regenerative and agroecological practices only amount to about 44 billion each year. Another study has analyzed in FAO that the transition to agroecology needs a level of investment of, well, tenfold the current levels. So the imperative is to increase financing for agroecology. But we also need to see what can be done, what is possible. And especially if we look at agricultural subsidies to agriculture that's detrimental and not sustainable. And this goal becomes even more urgent if you look at the agroecology transition, which looks at the adverse effects of the current systems. So, two simple observations. One, we need to increase funding for agroecology, and secondly, this is possible under certain conditions. One is the political will, which does exist, but the constraints need to be addressed. And also, the partners need to mobilize and implement their skills. In this context, it's really important to look at the actors of agroecology and see how PDBs can enter into the game and help. Some of them are very active, especially Nakam in Morocco. Their contribution is valuable because they can support the traditions and certain activities of the Agri-PDB platform in the framework of the ISAB program implemented by IFAD. Not only does this involve agroecology, but partnerships have entered have been entered into in other areas too. So it's important to do everything that we can to support sustainable and inclusive and participatory agroecology. The private sector should be involved, and the European Commission stands ready to do its part. With regard to ST3, it's the thematic unit, we have contributed to the Desira initiative, which focuses on research at the service of participatory approaches of farmers in many different areas: agrobiodiversity, circular economy, digitization, agroforestry. But we've also been engaged in several programs that focus on scaling up innovations through the integration of policy tools at different levels. Also, we have been active by establishing multi-actor networks on agroecology in Africa and in value chain projects. Right now, for example, we are working in the area of coffee, cocoa, and nuts. And also, we're working on the so-called abandoned crops that nobody pays very much attention to. So, in conclusion, we are trying to mobilize a larger vision of agroecology that can provide varied vantage points involving different actors, farmers, organizations, SMEs, academia, policymakers, universities, etc., and public development banks, along with the different IFIs. Everybody has an important role to play in this equation, and that's why we really do welcome the work being done by Mohamed and their team in order to identify and foster partnerships for future collaboration. So thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to say some words by introduction to support to express our support and of agroecology. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Back to you, Thierry. Thank you very much, Marion, for your welcoming words and, of course, for your support. An event on agroecology cannot happen, of course, without the representation of the Agroecology Coalition that was at the very heart of the idea to organize this webinar. Thank you very much, Thierry. Thank you, Marion. The interpreters apologize, but the sound does not allow for interpretation. Again, we do apologize, but the sound is too poor for us to understand and to interpret. The sound, unfortunately, is not good enough for interpretation. Could you do anything to improve your sound?
Perhaps slightly better. It's much of the same, perhaps a slightly better, but without the camera, it might work. Let's try. That does sound better. That does sound better. Apologies for the technical issue. Now I was talking about the three conventions of Rio: biodiversity, climate, and desertification. And these conventions are being implemented, and they're recognizing the co-benefit that agroecology can give to the full implementation of the Rio Convention. So what has been observed? More and more, we see that countries are beginning to develop their own national strategies for agroecology. We're seeing it in Africa, in Latin America, and also in Asia. I'm in Laos now, and I see that Asian countries are discussing how they can implement the sub-regional guidelines on the agroecological transition. So what we are seeing now is that there is a growing awareness of the role of agroecology at a global level as well as a regional and a national level. But while the recognition is growing, we also see at the same time that there is an issue of the involving the farmers' organizations and indigenous peoples, fisher folk communities. Their role is increasingly being recognized in the identification of priorities for the transformation of food systems, but also the role that they play to ensure a transformation of food systems in a way that is sustainable. Now, the discussions that we're having now show what a primary and really crucial role that it can play, because it makes it possible to have the different priorities organized from the point of view of the stakeholders, of farmers' organizations, civil society, so that the tools that are developed by international public banks, development banks, can respond to their needs. So the idea of having this discussion at once from the point of view of donors and banks, and at the same time from the point of view of the farmers, is a way to ensure that we have a dialogue in place between the two sides to achieve a true understanding of what the real needs of the stakeholders are in the field, on the one hand, and also to explain better to the donors, to the different banks, what the needs are, and to explain better what they can do from the point of view of the development of the financial tools that are adapted. So from our point of view, it's really crucial to have this discussion between banks on the one hand and the farmers' organizations on the other, to have this real dialogue involving the two sides, which will make it possible to identify solutions together that can best support this transition towards agroecology. I've been speaking English all day, so I apologize. I hope my French was good enough. But thank you very much. Thank you, Thierry. Thank you. Your French is always perfect, and we're really delighted to see this cooperation between our two coalitions. And we really hope to be able to continue to have these very fruitful activities together next year.
Now I'd like to give the floor to Kamini from IFAD to emphasize IFAD's engagement with innovation that's led by farmers. And together with Marco, we do try to work together in order to facilitate this link between farmers' organizations, farmers, producers, and PDBs. Marco, you have the floor. Thank you very much. Can you hear me well? Yes, thank you. Thank you for speaking French. It's a great pleasure to be part of this webinar, and it's really very important for the work that we're trying to do together. You know that IFAD hosts the Agri-PDB Platform, and so it's a pleasure to have with us the team but since its onset or creation, it's worked with the drivers of innovation and sustainability and resilience, and namely farmers and fisherfolk and livestock breeders. So access to agroecology is part of a program called F4 Impact. It's a global program financed by IFAD and the European Union for farmers, which should begin in 2026. It rests on similar and complementary initiatives that were mentioned very briefly by Marion. One of the areas of the program is to promote any regenerative agroecology resilient to climate change. And so farmers' organizations are asked to lead the transition towards agroecology, towards agroforestry, the fight against pests, and biopesticides, and diversification of crops, and conservation, water conservation techniques like water collection, for example. Thanks to the exchange of good practices amongst farmers, and thanks to co-research on local production, farmers' organizations have celebrated the adoption of these practices. Agroecology is not just technical, it's related to production, market, and policies regarding sustainable food systems. Farmers' organizations encourage co-research and co-innovation that combines scientific expertise and local knowledge. Research carried out by farmers can find solutions adapted to the context for a transition to agroecology and adaptation to climate change. So the partnership, in partnership with research institutions and digital tools, it's possible to reinforce practices. This is a very clear area of work under the program. And of course, we also have policy because farmers' organizations work for policies that are favorable to agroecology, like market access. They can have an influence on national policies in order to make sure that agroecological principles are integrated in food systems. The second area that's very important to this conversation is the area that has to do with the integration of farmers' organizations and value chains and access to financing. Farmers' organizations link farmers to financing. They negotiate with buyers and suppliers. They reduce power asymmetry and obtain better conditions for farmers. And of course, fisherfolk and livestock breeders. They provide a lot of opportunities for young people and women, and they foster partnerships and rural employment. This integration provides for the opportunity to mobilize funding in the financial sector, as earlier programs that made it possible to mobilize $1 for every $2 given to farmers' organizations. The idea is to establish more systematic links with PDBs and other financial institutions, and to understand how to better or how to improve access to financing. There's another program, INSA, also supported and financed by the European Commission, that tries to establish better links between PDBs and farmers' organizations. So by way of conclusion, our vision, well, we really do believe that the role of farmers' organizations is key, but what is also key is a possibility of linking these organizations to financial systems and the value chain system, because this could really provide an impact and a rural transformation, which is the goal that we pursue together. Thank you very much, and back to you. Thank you very much. Thank you to the three speakers for their opening remarks. Mohamed, I'll give you the floor back. Thank you, Thierry. Thank you to the three speakers who provided opening remarks. We'll begin now the first segment that concerns the experience of farmers from Morocco. We have the pleasure of having several of them that represent different regions of Morocco, and they're going to tell us about their engagement in agroecology. I'd like to begin with Mimoun Alhouz from Taza, farmer leader who diversified from cereal to almond production to respond to drought, forming a local partnership supported by IFAD and Morocco. Can you hear me, Mr. Mimoun? Could we unmute the speaker? Mr. Mimoun?
Please wait a moment, it got stuck. We tried it to promote him.
I'm sorry about the delay. We're waiting for our farmer, Mimoun Alhouz, who's going to speak. I don't know whether you can hear me. Yes. There we go, Ms. Asyahifa. I'm going to try to contact him to know whether he's going to be able to join. I think he's connected. Yes, I can see.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Fatiha Hassouni. I'm a new Moroccan farmer, and I would like to thank IFAD for this invitation. I was asked to speak about my experience. Mohammed Ali, is that what you want me to do? But perhaps if Mimoun is connected, perhaps we could have him first. All right, Mimoun, you go first, and I will follow. Thank you. Thank you for your understanding. Right, we now have Mimoun Alhouz online. And you will tell us about your agroecological transition in your farm. Please go ahead. Hello, yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead. There seems to be a little issue with the connection. Perhaps Mr. Mimoun Alhouz cannot really hear us. So let's go back to Miss Fatiha Hassouni, and then in 5 minutes we'll try again and have the connection once again. So back to Miss Fatiha Hassouni. Good. So good morning again. So what can I tell you? I started 4 years ago, but it's something I've been thinking about for a long time. I wanted to become a farmer using agroecological practices. So 4 years ago, I started work. I own 2 hectares of land. Right. So I made a personal investment and purchased the land. And that, of course, is linked to financing. So we'll come back to that. And I leased also another hectare. I have olive trees. About 5 years ago, I've been producing olive oil now for 3 years. And after the purchase of the land, I started to diversify the trees that we had. That meant that I tried to introduce other types of fruit trees to have more diversity. And I had an economic plan, a business plan that called for that. And I'm trying to follow practices to protect the soil, for instance. I don't use any external inputs, but I've started using now livestock. I have some sheep, cows, donkeys, so different types of livestock to be able to use livestock to fertilize the land, the soil. And I'm also working on the shelters and producing also of vegetables with a vegetable garden. The energy I make use of is renewable solar energy, and I'm adopting different practices for water management, water sparing practices. So these are the different techniques that I am making use of. And that gives you an idea of what my project for my farm is. Now, regarding financing, I have used my own capital to develop this farm. I did not have access to banks, to any bank loans or any other source of financing, but I had some personal savings, and that is what I've used. But I'm also a member of a number of different organizations. Organizations that are involved in agroecology or agroforestry and other cooperatives that are working in the area. And we have a dialogue amongst ourselves as farmers who are practicing agroecology and agroforestry in more general terms, and other farmers who are interested in what we're doing. Farmers who are seeking solutions because we've had several years now of drought in Morocco. And so farmers today, even those farmers who were practicing conventional agriculture, are beginning to try to engage with those who are working in agroforestry and because they're seeking solutions. They have a real issue with the drought. So this is an important dialogue that should be also mentioned. Small farmers, of course, have challenges, and I imagine Mimoun will be speaking about this later because he represents a grouping of different smallholder farmers. But what I can say is that it's very difficult for smallholder farmers to access any financing tools. The financial products that exist today are not in any way adapted to the profiles of smallholder farmers. They do not have the technical capacity to prepare their loan applications. They do not meet the banking requirements. Even those banks that do have agricultural credit programs are not adapted. I'm not aware of any specific financial products for agroecology. There always is the banks, a typical approach, which is based on risk assessments. You need impact assessments and so on. And then you have to be able to show the possible revenue streams and meet the bank's requirements. But we've seen that those farmers who've taken an initiative and decided to start to adopt agroecological practices really are not receiving support from the government or from the banking sector. I don't see that there's any dialogue in place now between development banks, agricultural development banks in particular, and small and medium-sized farmers that would make it possible to have financial solutions that are adapted to the needs of farmers. I can give you an example. In one of my hectares, I would like to follow a special method, but the initial transition would require 10,000 euros, basically. Now, there are some programs, government programs, to provide support, and they could finance up to 50% of this project, but 50% is far from what a smallholder farmer would need to invest. And it is a substantial investment. And we're speaking about farmers who are really proposing solutions, who are taking the risk of adopting these practices to protect nature, to protect our planet, to fight against the impact of climate change. So I think that this is a discussion that needs to take place and needs to be supported, because those farmers who are ready to make these choices are really rendering a public service, a service to their country and a service to their region. Most of the other farmers are not taking on that risk. But climate change, of course, is a global issue, and we must all contribute as we can. And we need to have, on the government side and on the bank side, solutions to deal with the insurance, with financing the risk profiles. That's one aspect. And the other aspect that is very important is that if a farmer today who farms in the conventional way is thinking about making the transition to agroecological farming practices, will take some time. And in the initial stage, things may not go so well for a number of reasons, because of the climate, the drought, the soil in his land needs to be regenerated, and that might take a number of years. There's a need for renewing to return the fertility to the soil. That can take time. So can banks take the risk of supporting small farmers over a long period of time, waiting the time for the farm to become profitable, so that the farmers can pay back the loans? This is the sort of issue, and I think that the time factor is crucial. Agroecological transitions require time. And based on my experience, I can say that there are periods where there may be failures, where the transition may not work initially. There's a need for readjustments. And this is something that banks do not want to take. They don't want to take this risk. So these are the challenges. I'll stop at that. But of course, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Fatiha. And it will be interesting to hear from Crédit Agricole of Morocco in the second part. So thank you very much. Perhaps you can try once again with Mr. Mimoun Alhouz. Yes, good morning. Good morning. Welcome. Yes, I'll speak by thanking you for having invited me. I'm a farmer of the Taza region, and I'm also president of the Farmers Association. We're leading a project in the Green Morocco Plan, working with our Association of Farmers in Taza. So our work is included in the Green Morocco Fund, and we have started planting almond trees. That's part of our reconversion program for our farming initiatives. And there's been an issue with the profitability with our previous crops, so now we're moving towards almonds. And so far, we started in 2015, 2016, and we're beginning to see the benefits of this new planting of almond trees. And our association, CERTS Association, has received support in different types, linked to working the soil, protection of the trees, treatment of and conservation, and different techniques for the protection of these trees, as well as also other support on on how to introduce other crops, aromatic plants, rosemary, for instance, other herbs and plants. And we're also working on beehive production to broaden the range of our production, taking into account climate change and the fact that our region has to face the challenges. And we found that we're engaging now in crops that can be better adapted to the impact of climate change. Ours is a mountainous region, and at times there's rainfall, but episodic. And so we've worked together with FERT and have tried to learn techniques and practices that are better adapted to climate change. So we can use compost, we can use organic matter, or other types of inputs, avoiding those inputs that are harmful to nature. And we're sharing this experience also with other farmers in our region, in 3 different municipalities, with the aim of also extending the benefit of this transition of these new practices. So I find that the project so far has been positive and is generating income for our farmers. There are other activities that are less profitable, and we're working conditions of poverty and high levels of migration. But today I see that this value chain, almond trees, complemented by the aromatic plants, complemented by honey production, it can really help us withstand the impact of climate change. And as president of our association, we're happy. I can say that we're happy to share this experience with other institutions, other groupings, to try to extend this experience and this expanded range of activities to a larger number of farmers. And for that, we can have little trials. We have field visits for farmers and exchanges with farmers from other regions or with other farmers to try to expand on these experience, the sharing of experience, and show how we can best protect the nature in our region. I hope that our project, I'm glad that we're able to share our project with you, and we're looking for other solutions, other approaches, but we do need funds, we do need financing. And the administration needs to assist us, to be close to us, to help us protect nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Mimoun. Alhouz. And now we're going to move on to the third speaker of the webinar. It's going to be Mr. Ramdan Imdabr. Can you hear me? Yes. Right. So this intervention will be in Arabic and is going to be interpreted by somebody else here. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for having shared your challenges and the lessons learned. And we'll give the floor over to Fatiha for Asia for the interpretation. Thank you very much for inviting me and for creating this form of exchange for us. I'm Asia, and I am going to try to convey the witness provided by Mr. Ramdan. First of all, he thanks the organizers and also talks about two different areas having to do with his experience with the financing provided by Crédit Agricole. Thanks to the support of FERT in Morocco, he was able to engage in agroecological practices, and he learned a lot through many workshops and demonstrations with regard to the use of composting and other practices. The speaker then shared his experience with financing provided by Crédit Agricole for his project, rearing sheep, cows, and poultry, along with the planting of almond trees. With his brothers, they have started to prepare the land and soil while waiting for financing, but they encountered several difficulties. Conditions are very strict when it comes to guarantees. For example, it's difficult to register the documents in the name of the beneficiary. And also supporting documents are required for monitoring and following up. Also, reimbursement ought to happen in time. Otherwise, if delays accrue, there are penalties to be paid. But anyway, over time, he was able to understand that as a farmer, and like other farmers, they need a funding that is more flexible and that is adapted to the conditions of the farmers. They need procedures that are more specific, and they need technical support. But in spite of the hindrances and obstacles, they've been able to continue, and funding continues to be provided thanks to Crédit Agricole and to the association in Morocco, CIRCAM. Thank you very much, Mr. Imdabr. Let's move on now to the third speaker, the third farmer, Mustapha Belharcha, who is going to share with us a number of recommendations regarding agroecology. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you, IFAD, for inviting me. I'm going to try to speak French. Let me introduce myself. I hope that you can hear me, actually, before I go any further. Okay, right. So, I'm Mustapha Belharcha. I'm a farmer. I work in an agroecological project, and I have been since 2007, after which I created a group of farmers in the rural area in order to put an end to the exodus from the countryside. We created an organic market that's held every Sunday here, and we also created a cooperative. Also, I am a member of RIAM, which is a network of agroecological initiatives in Morocco. After the many experiences I had with agroecology, I decided to boost agroecology with respect to the need of funding. Of course, let me start with training. training requires financing. But also, I'd like to talk to you about the transition to agroecology, which requires funding, but also the implementation and the setting up of the farm, along with the market that also is in need of financing. I also would like to speak about rural tourism, ecotourism, and the attention that that requires and how that links up to agroecology. Let me just say that we're faced with a problem, uh, and that is we need to look at things realistically. We need to deal not with banks, but with smallholder farmers. And if there is an experience with banks already, then we need to build on that. Usually, the financing, the traditional financing system of banks is traditional and very well known in the rural world. But we have two other donors that are quite interesting and that now manage subsidies in agroecology with their weaknesses and their strengths, of course. What I propose, well, let me go back to something that's really crucial. When we talk about agroecology, we need to bear in mind that there are very specific requirements and that banks often neglect that. They do not have these specific or specifications that they need in order to measure impact. Also, let me talk about carbon. The carbon footprint, because usually banks in partnership with actors can definitely integrate financing to carbon trade. It's really important to make that connection. We need to bring the two elements together, investment, which is really important for any agroecological project, but we need to combine that with subsidies made available by donors that work on climate change, like carbon trading or other objectives that revolve around climate change. I think that this is a really excellent solution if we're able to provide a partnership, and partnerships play an important role provided that the partners are specialists in the area of agroecology. Thank you very much, Mr. Mustapha, for this a very clear and excellent overview, and thank you for clarifying the role of partners, banks, and farmers for the transition to agroecology. And now I'd like to give the floor to Ms. Assem for the second part of the webinar. She's going to present the work done by Crédit Agricole in Morocco in order to support the transition towards agroecology. Madam, you have the floor. You are muted.
Thank you for this invitation, and I'm really happy to be here with you for this discussion on a subject that is important to us all, namely how financial institutions can support the agroecological transition. Now, you've already shown us that agroecology is a possible path for the future, and I would like to thank the speakers. Or the speakers who so far have shown us that it's a project that can be successful. It can happen, and it requires resources. Being able to integrate sustainable practices as a farmer, or transition to almond trees in drought conditions, or develop local associations, or increasing the range or diversify production. All of these were very important witnesses and show that they really are encouraging. But they also mentioned the specific needs you have. They can be very simple, but there's a need for technical assistance and a framework that will that will take these needs into account. So it's our Crédit Agricole of Morocco has set up a program that is specifically aimed at the green transition and agroecology, and to really respond to the needs of the farmers is not only a matter of investment, but also assisting in the move towards agroecology. It's a program that's based on complementary financial products. We have 4 different products. The first aims directly at biological production with funding that can cover up to 100% of the investment, therefore organic farming, 100%. And the objective of this funding is to remove the financial hurdles to those who wish to move towards practices that are based on soil fertility, natural inputs, and environmental protection, conservation. The Biofilaha, this product, can provide for reimbursement stretching up to 6 years, with a view to the difficulty of this type of project. The second is called Ekotaha. It's another product, financial product, divided into 2 different parts, one dedicated to agriculture and another more to agro-industry, agro-businesses. And its focus is really on the energy needs to help farms reduce their energy needs and to have more renewable energy, energy sparing. And to answer the question that was asked, this financial product has a special convention with Tolba, which is a branch of OCP that provides funding to farmers to help them buy seeds and seed infrastructure. And it's important to, and I would suggest that our speaker go and ask about this tool, which does exist, this new instrument, which does exist and has been developed together with Torba. So financing that is provided specifically for seeders. And there are investments that can cover up to 10% of the investment. This could be very interesting. And it can help provide motivation to clients. And continuing on our financial products, we have a third product for waste treatment, waste management, from an agroecological perspective, with the production, therefore, of compost, and which can also help reduce dependence on chemical inputs. All of this funding is associated with a set of measures that can provide different reimbursement plans as well as support to investments that can go up to 6 years reimbursement for the organic farming. For others, the period is shorter, 1 year. But there are forms of financing that can go up to 80, 90%, even 100% in the case of a Biofilaha, the organic farming product. And this has been made possible thanks also to our partnership with the French Development Agency. I would like to thank them for their support. They have supported this initiative. And perhaps the most important product or service that can be provided is free technical assistance that is offered to farmers or to those who want to work in the area of energy efficiency or circular economy or organic farming. Now, the agroecological transition, of course, is very much based on knowledge, on rational water use, on diversity of crops, on looking at byproducts and waste. And all of this is very important. And therefore, technical assistance, from our point of view, is really a crucial service, and it is offered in the framework of this program. Crédit Agricole of Morocco, CAM, offers this support free of charge, as well as training programs and awareness-raising programs on sustainable farming practices. This is done in close cooperation with a specialized platform, and together we're developing a training program for agroecology and also the role of development banks in facilitating the agroecological transition. This cooperation aims at disseminating, of course, best practices, capacity building, also from a financial point of view, to support more resilient farming models. CAM will also be sharing our experience with the other priority countries in the program to support the operationalization of adaptive financial instruments and technical support, with a view to accelerating large-scale agroecological transition. We also see that when the technical assistance and funding are provided together, the outcomes can be much more sustainable, much more solid. Those who have moved towards composting or mixed livestock breeding, or new farmers who want to really start out on the basis of sustainable basis, really need this technical support, which can be crucial. So we see our role not only as giving loans, but also structuring loans in ways that are politically viable, ethically credible, and adapted to the reality in the ground, in the field. Agroecology is not an order, of course, but it's a gradual evolution that can be built together with the farmers at the rate of the farmers, and which needs to be compatible with the economic sustainability of farmers. We believe that by combining adapted financing with specific technical assistance and cooperation with local organizations, all of this together can strengthen this and really spread this transition. I hope this was an answer to the questions that were asked by your speakers. I would like to congratulate them for their initiatives, and thank you also for your attention, for having invited me to this workshop. Thank you. Thank you, Yassine, for this institutional perspective. I think you focus well on the need to facilitating access to information as well as financial instruments for smallholder farmers. This dialogue will continue with our colleagues of the European Commission, the Agroecology Coalition, IFAD, the French Development Agency as well. And now I'd like to give our floor to our colleague from the French Development Agency, who will be closing this remark. Claude Thor. Thank you. Thank you for your invitation, and thank you for this very interesting and very enriching dialogue on this agroecological transition in Morocco. I will try to draw some conclusions very briefly. I noted in the introductory part the importance of European financing for the agroecological transition, research and development, support to funding programs. I noted the institutional components of the agroecological transition that can bring together research and knowledge and provide a serious support to the promotion of this agroecological approach, and also the assistance provided by IFAD that has a number of programs that can help support the sustainable agriculture, in particular through the hosting of the public development banks on the platform, and facilitates exchanges in this area, sharing of best practices on financial inclusion and promotion of sustainable investments in agroecology. We have contributed partially to funding this platform, and the other program that was mentioned, the program of the European Commission that provides support to technical assistance to a certain number, at least 4 development banks. I've listened to the very valuable witnesses that we heard from the field. And in the case of Fatiha, I noted the importance of the encouragement that can be given to reduce the risks of the agroecological transition. We know that over a period that can be from 5 to 10 years, the levels of production will be equivalent to conventional agriculture. But there's a certain variability in the yields, especially in the transition period, that can lead to a possible loss of some harvest because the soil has to be consolidated enough. The technical procedures need to be in place to be able to really boost the production. So there are some risks that need to be run, and it's important to see how these risks can be covered. If they're not covered, then banks are reluctant to provide financing, or they require guarantees and technical approaches that can really end up reducing the financing available to producers. I also noticed, listening to Fatiha, the importance of the search for self-reliance in production through diversification of different types of farming activities, trying to really draw the maximum added value possible from the farm. And this is especially important for smallholder farmers who really must boost value added to be able to earn the highest possible prices. But undertaking this risk needs to be supported by the banks. Listening to Mimoun, we also saw the importance of diversification as a really important path for the future. But I also noted in his witness that this is possible only thanks to technical support, and that at times is lacking, and the banks need it too. And Ms. Isan said very clearly that one of the pathways to risk reduction for banks is really having this technical support in place. The difficulty, however, is that it needs to be provided on a continuous basis and not simply through a donors program, but there need to be mechanisms in place. Professional organizations, for instance, perhaps didn't speak about that enough during this meeting, but it was mentioned. There are different networks of actors that exist, technical exchange networks. These different networks should also facilitate access to support, technical support for the members of these associations. Also in terms of equipment, Fatiha also talked about the difficulty in accessing seeders and the high price of these seeders and difficulty in funding. We also heard about the importance of diversification from the other farmer, and the support that was provided through FERT, which made it possible to address the technical issues and make it possible to pay back the loans taken from Crédit Agricole, and also Mustapha, who gave us a very interesting presentation. And I saw that he's active in many different networks, and it's very important to seek added value through his organic production in Rabat markets, his work in cooperatives, his inclusion in networks of producers that can exchange their experience, the successes and the failures amongst producers, and the needs in terms of training, research and development, support in terms of market access, and diversification, even stretching as far as rural tourism. You also mentioned of the specifications required, and the way to achieve better prices is often through value chains that provide quality trademarks that can win better prices and be more profitable. And we see that markets that are more territorialized with producers that can really deliver high quality products, also supported by local procurement, local public procurement, can be important paths to ensure that the farmers earn better and give a price signal that can be very advantageous in terms of agroecology and reduce the risks. We haven't spoken about insurance, which is another important factor. I know that the government, Morocco, can cover or help cover insurance premiums. It's a way of reducing risk to a certain percentage, up to 50%. And of course, insurance companies have a real interest in giving a clear signal in terms of their services, which can perform much better over the long term than in the case of conventional farming, which can represent a real risk for banks' portfolios as well, because the agroecological based farms are more resilient also to the impact of climate change in particular. So that is what I would contribute as a summary. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. And we'd like to thank all of our speakers and the audience. These have been very interesting contributions. This dialogue will continue, and we'll try to connect the stakeholders with the delegation in Morocco, but we've gone a little bit over our time for the webinar. We will close this webinar now, but you will receive a recording with all of the interventions, the questions. There are many questions in the chats. We'll try to answer these questions. And in 2026, we'll try to organize a second dialogue between farmers and the interested banks to continue this extremely interesting dialogue. Thank you very much. Thank the interpreters. Thank you. And just one announcement before you leave us. Next week, we'll be organizing another webinar on biodiversity. Why should a public development bank also finance biodiversity or integrate biodiversity components in its projects? That will be the question. Thank you very much and hope to see you all again soon. Thank you all. Thank you. Goodbye.